we have a huge amount of scale. So we've already got 600,000 total rare earth oxides tons proven, JORCed, and ready to be processed, ready to be brought into production. So we're not an exploration project, and I think that's inherent in that question, right? We are not an exploration project, and therefore we are moving into a space where within a very short period of time we can be part of the solution that is needed for the supply of rare earths outside of China.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. Joining me in the studio today is Harena Resources Executive Chairman Ivan Murphy. Ivan, very good to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
So Ivan, for investors new to Harena, can you start by explaining what sets the company apart in the critical mineral space and why rare earths, especially ionic rare clays, are so strategically important right now?
Okay, well, I think the answer is in your question. So what sets us apart is that we are exactly that. We are in an ionic clay rare earth project. And this is probably the key differentiator for us. And what's important about that is all we hear about is China's domination of the rare earth space. I mean, that's the big story at the moment. And that's because they have ionized clays. I mean, that is really the nub of their power. And why is that important? It's important because it's so much easier to extract, refine, and produce rare earths from ionized clays. Ionized clays are what they sound like. They're on the top. So there's no mining, you're not blowing up stuff, you're not crushing rocks, there's none of that at all. So that's a big factor in why we are different, because we have that same mineralization. So that's a big part of it. And then we have a very large resource. And the thing about rare earths, which I'm sure you're aware of, is they're not that rare. It's just rare to extract them efficiently and in a productive manner that makes them of value.
The Ampasindava Project in Madagascar is often described as one of the most significant ionic clay rare earth deposits outside of China. Can you give us a sense of the scale, potential, and why it's considered so strategic globally?
Yeah, well, I mean, that again is a really important question, because those words aren't ours. They come from SGS, who did our independent surveying and did our JORC resource. So they rate it as one of the key rare earth projects outside of China. So that's not just us saying it, we would obviously say that. So I think what that means is that we have a huge amount of scale. So we've already got 600,000 total rare earth oxides tons proven, JORCed, and ready to be processed, ready to be brought into production. So we're not an exploration project, and I think that's inherent in that question, right? We are not an exploration project, and therefore we are moving into a space where within a very short period of time we can be part of the solution that is needed for the supply of rare earths outside of China.
You said in a very short period of time. How are you advancing the project technically and environmentally as you move towards that production?
Yeah, so we've just completed our pre-feasibility study, which is all part of our license upgrade with the government to move into a production license effectively. So we'll be submitting that to them shortly and looking forward to our license upgrade. In addition to that, we continue to do test work, and then we'll be looking after this then to, complete a feasibility study, after our pre-feasibility study, do further test work, proof of concept, and start moving the project along technically.
RAB Capital has just increased its investments, effectively doubling its stake in Harena. So obviously a vote of confidence for the company. How would you use those funds to advance the project?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, it's a huge vote of confidence in the company, especially in the UK context. We are fortunate already to have some US investors that joined in an investment round we did in August. So we have a couple of big institutions in the US. But RAB's investment and their doubling their investment is hugely important to us in the local market. It's one of the longest standing mining groups in London. Philip Richards, who heads RAB, is one of the most legendary mining investors in the city. So, and also a very early investor in rare earth companies. So, he's been around rare earths for much longer than most, and he's done very well backing companies like us as they move forward and grow. So we're going to use that money just to continue to support our efforts in terms of moving the project forward, applying it to all the things I've already set out roughly about the moving forward of the license applications, test work on the ground, but lots of work to be done in country. We want to continue to develop out the infrastructure around our project and our engagement with the local community and with the government.
You've also spoken about increasing your engagement with the United States and perhaps cross-trading on the OTCQB, Ivan. How do you access US investors, and why are they important, particularly given the importance of the North American markets for your product?
Yeah, this is really where the rare earth mania, as Forbes magazine called it today, is happening. So the US have really given a very, very aggressive strategy towards securing rare earth and critical mineral supply outside of China. The trade war is in full effect, as we all know. The Chinese ain't going to be sharing theirs with anybody as far as they can. So to that end, we are very strategically pushing ourselves towards the US, not just in terms of partners for developing the project, but also for investors. So we have applied and we'll have our OTC listing in a couple of weeks. This will give us access to US investors. It'll also keep continuing to identify and show that our strategy is towards the US.
You spoke about the strategic importance of the project. How about the geographical importance of where it's positioned?
Yeah, so that is another advantage for us. We're in the very north of the island, which means we're on the coast, so we've access to good saline water, salt water, which is actually part of our processing, so that's good. And also for communications, we're very close to a port. So infrastructure obviously restricts and always creates difficulty around projects in Africa because infrastructure is just not as good as it might be in certain countries. We're lucky to be on the coast, so we're already in a good place infrastructure-wise, get it to port and ship it out from there. I just think one last thing on that strategy thing around the US I think was important. We've seen over the last few weeks the DFC and other US agencies making direct investments into rare earth companies. They've done one in Brazil for 5 million for their feasibility study. They've done one in Africa. The bank Exim out of the US is doing some funding in Greenland for a project, and there was another one announced today. I didn't catch the whole headline. So, we've already started our engagement with US agencies. I've been in DC twice in the last 5 weeks, which has been great. I'm looking for the shutdown to be over so we can continue those discussions. But that's a real strategy for us, as it is for others. And honestly, it's a great strategy from the US government. I think the UK government could be doing the same thing.
Ivan, as you settle into the role of Executive Chairman, which key milestones or catalysts should investors be watching out for from Harena over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think securing our license upgrade in country, so that's going to come over these next couple of months. The work that goes around that, including the completion and submission of the pre-feasibility study, which in time we'll publish. So I think that'll be a big moment for us. I think identifying the right US agency to connect with or corporate, that'll be something we'll look forward to announcing in these next weeks. I think also the OTC listing is a big turning point for us and how we promote ourselves within the US capital markets. I think that'll really help get more interest in our stock. On any matrix, we're only now starting to arrive on people's radars. This is why I'm here. So, if you look at our valuation compared to anybody else's, we're still a little undiscovered, but becoming less so. And I think that, RAB Capital, Wexford Capital out of the US and other big institutions who are now on our register, are putting us in a good place for that.
Well, I hope you'll keep us updated on your progress. Thank you very much for coming through today.
Good to see you again. Thank you.
Ivan Murphy is Executive Chairman of Harena Resources.